Yo, what those up? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Our Friend. Our Friend is based on a true story about a couple whose friend moves in with them and their family after one of them receives a cancer diagnosis. Last week I bitched about not feeling enough during Outside the Wire. We'll call this an overcorrection. Look, are movies like this generally up my lane? Not typically. I consider movies like this to be tier porn. When a filmmaker chooses a topic like this, like cancer, they know exactly what they're signing up for, they know exactly what their audience is, what they're expecting, and they're gonna do everything they can, pull all the stops to hit you right in the face with the feels. On the flip side, we, the audience, sees a movie like this get released and we ask ourselves the very honest question, do we feel like crying today? All sides are on the same page in a movie like this, both in front of the camera, behind the camera, and in front of the screen. It's like watching Marley and Me. Yeah, you know you're gonna enjoy the ride, but you know that that highway only has one exit, and the weather's calling for a heavy precipitation. But while I, like most, enjoy a good cry during a movie, even though most people probably wouldn't admit that, that wasn't my appeal for this movie. I mean, I could find that any number of places, any number of movies. The big hook, at least for me, was working in the perspective of friendship into this very heavily explored and traveled road. We've all seen films that explore the trials and horrors of a cancer diagnosis, but generally speaking, most of them come from the perspective of the family, like the first-hand account, the people closest to the cancer diagnosis, having a direct affiliation to it. But what you don't see as much like the second, third, fourth-hand accounts, like having a friend there. It begs the question of where do friends fall in this equation? How close do they need to be? When are they no longer obligated to be there without being considered a bad friend? These are very difficult, cruel, and real questions that real people face in real life when dealing with stuff like this. So for me, I find it very, very intriguing. This movie interested me. Add this concept with an insanely talented Academy Award-winning actor like Casey Affleck, paired with probably the most likable actor ever in Jason Segel. I mean, damn, what's not to like here? And the pros start right there. The acting in this film, top shelf stuff. Dakota Johnson playing our cancer patient who's dealing with some serious emotional and physical struggles. Casey Affleck, our character trying to hold it all together but having a real hard time trying to do so. Jason Segel playing the great friend character who's just trying to do whatever he can to help out during this hard time. Everyone, even the two little girls, the daughters of the family, I mean, everyone killed it. There was no weak link here. I mentioned before, movies with concepts like this are like tier porn, like a guaranteed cry, but that's no given. It is all hinging upon your actor's ability to portray that pain and that struggle. And these actors, this ensemble, sold it. The director really let them work too, because there were some very long takes here where they got to just chew up the scene. Our director also helmed a very beautiful film. There's some great cinematography here, very interesting compositions and well-composed shots. Lots of great aerial drone shots that I really enjoyed, from cityscapes to nature terrain. I loved it all. But let's be real, this is a movie about people, human beings, and while this film was no slouch technically, this is about the characters. This movie builds some very thick, hardy, compelling characters throughout the course of the film and reinforces their relationships wonderfully. The characters are relatable, likable, and very easy to root for. This movie does a great job to show the best of humanity, puts them in scenarios where they have to step up and do the right thing, and generally they do not disappoint, even though sometimes it makes it seem like they might. It's like watching a horror movie where you see a character approaching a dark, sketchy ass hallway. You're always saying, don't go down there, don't go down there. Now imagine if they didn't go down there. How satisfying would that be? The characters are awesome, the story is great, it's bursting at the seams with emotion. Frankly, it's been a long time since I've seen a movie that touched me in the way that this one did. Was starting to worry that I didn't have feelings anymore, so today, I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focused on the pain, the only thing that's real. Speaking of pain outside of the tear-jerking, I felt very little. My list of cons is short. For one, I think they went a little overkill on some of the artsy, creative, crafty angles that they composed their shots from. It was especially glaring during some very key emotional sequences and conversations. Don't get me wrong, I love great cinematography. I love when filmmakers find new, interesting ways to film things from new perspectives that we usually don't see them, but sometimes it can get a little distracting. When you find a new interesting angle and perspective to capture something, you're kind of bringing all the attention toward the shot, saying, hey, look at me, instead of really letting the audience focus on the content and the acting. It kind of takes you out of the moment for a brief second because you're seeing a conversation happen, a very compelling, emotional conversation, but you're seeing it from a very wacky angle. It's cool, but you're never going to see this conversation from that angle, and then you're kind of reminded that you're watching a movie, not something real life. I personally think during some of these key pivotal moments, these very emotionally charged sequences, just let the content speak for itself. You don't need to jazz it up with awesome cinematography. There was also a sequence where we had two characters having a very intense conversation, very pivotal one at that, in a hospital, but most of it is covered up by like interesting B-roll shots of a hospital versus actually seeing them on screen. Part of me feels like they were just covering something up. Like it just felt strange that we were hearing this conversation but not seeing any of them. It was a very odd sequence. It was only one, but it did throw me off a little bit. I also felt that the film jumped around way too much in terms of the timeline in which the sequence of events happened. This entire story takes place over the course of like a couple decades, and it kind of jumps from the very beginning when they first meet the friend all the way to the end, and then somewhere back and forth to the cancer diagnosis a little bit after, a little bit before, instead of telling it in just a nice, clean, linear fashion. There were a few moments where this made sense, like it would be in the future and it would tease some event that happened allegedly in the past that we hadn't seen yet, and it would kind of build a little bit of intrigue, like, right, oh, I can't wait to see what they're talking about, and you eventually do, and it worked in that regard. But the rest of the movie felt like it had the damn click remote, like there would be a very intense fight, everyone hates each other, and then all of a sudden it would just jump to another time, whether it was in the future where everything was cool, whether it was in the past before everything went to shit. You just rarely saw the resolution of some of these very pivotal scenes, and it was just kind of a bummer. I feel like it kind of lost steam whenever it jumped around so much. That being said, it did not take away too much, because this movie is a devastator. It had me bawling. It was a very powerful, wonderful, and very human story that I would highly recommend. I'm going to give Our Friend an A-. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure you're following this page to stay up to date with new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe and thanks for checking in.